Welcome back, viewers, to Good Morning Tobago. We continue on with Dr. Paul Richards, but we go into a different segment. He has just opened up about domestic violence against men and how it can be, the result of what it can lead to or what may lead up to it. Now we go into protecting the bullied man. And I know that, normally young ladies would be victims of bullying in school, or you would hear bullying at the school level only, but maybe it can be dealt with as an adult. Maybe bullying has been happening as in our adulthood and no one is speaking out about it. I invite Dr. Richards as we go through this topic this morning on protecting the bullied man. So Dr. Richards, to you, at what stage would bullying occur the most in your opinion?
Well, there's no special time for bullying. It depends on what your own personal definition of bullying. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have something we call pecan, which was widely accepted years ago and is still widely accepted among men, among each other, where men give each other talk, but we don't know how far it goes and the impact it's having on someone's psychological well-being. So very often, men in a group lambing with each other would say things that they consider pecan, but you don't know how that person is receiving that or what effect it's having on their psyche or their sense of self-esteem. We can also go a step further because of the pervasiveness and explosion of the use of the internet, TikTok, social media in general. We see people making careers out of bullying each other and saying really awful things about each other online as part of, unfortunately, what's come to be known as social media entertainment and influencers now. And people have normalized this behavior and normalized accepting it, but it is having devastating effects on people's psyche and well-being, both men and women. And because it's now in the realm of social media, someone doesn't even have to be logged on or have to be in front of your face to be receiving consistent, devastating, abusive language toward yourself and your personality and your character on a consistent basis. And there's very little in many cases you can do about it, depending on the circumstance and who is delivering these comments about you. So it's a very difficult thing to deal with now. On one hand, if it's face-to-face, you can have a conversation with the person if they're open to changing. It's one thing. And even if in that situation, many men are not going to say, listen, you're hurting my feelings by saying that, because it's expected that you need to learn to take talk, or you're not a man or what. And that's the general sentiment they're trying to be. You can't take a little talk, while internally, the person is really feeling a sense of deep hurt, shame, embarrassment, and reduction of self-esteem from the comments being made, even in a close social circle. Take that online and it's multiplied by thousands and thousands of people. So I think we need to have a national conversation about bullying among adults, because it's now turned into, unfortunately, entertainment on TikTok and Instagram Live, where it's expected that, well, this one's saying this about that one is going to respond tomorrow, this one's saying that about this one, and people have made entire social media careers out of literally being abusive and bullying each other. So it's really an unfortunate development that seems to have no end in sight.
Yes, I love the fact that you acknowledge that there is bullying amongst adults, because oftentimes you'll hear about bullying on the school level, but people don't realize that bullying actually follows into the workspace. It follows into different aspects of life, and normally they don't know how to differentiate or deal with the situations on a whole. There are cases where, well, to add to what you were saying, honestly, I think bullies make bullies. So I'm being bullied by this person, and because I have people under me, if I'm being bullied, then other people need to be bullied too, because I need to feel better about myself, right? So I love the fact that you have acknowledged bullying amongst adults. So in light of that, what do you think may encourage an individual to get into bullying on a whole, right? For the child and for the adult?
But poor socialization, coming from a background where, as you said, yes, people who there are a large percentage of people who engage in bullying activity were bullied themselves. So that's what's been modeled to them, and also unhealthy approaches to building stature in society. So you feel if you bully, you get more power in the environment that you're in and people respect you more. Unfortunately, it's an unhealthy approach and an unproductive approach, but that's the way they're looking for props, as we say. They're looking for societal credibility. And it starts in the playground, it starts in the classroom, and it rolls into adolescence and adulthood. And we see it in many sectors. We see it in the office. We see it in social settings, in entertainment centers, and we're seeing it more and more on social media. So, I mean, it's a vicious cycle, and unfortunately, it's becoming more and more acceptable because of social media, because of what people look forward to it for entertainment. When someone is the perpetrator and someone is the victim, particularly online, because it gathers likes and views, and in an attention economy, people are not really caring about the effect it's having on the person on the receiving end. They're looking at it as entertainment and getting likes and getting views and being in the know and in the circle. And see what X said last night about why, and it's turned into entertainment, unfortunately, and having devastating effects, and also socializing a next generation of children to behave in the same way, which is really unfortunate.
Yes. So in specific to men, what do you think young men may or will be going through that would cause them to be bullies in their early life and then later on into adulthood, specifically to men? I know that there are some things that might be generalized to men and women, but men in specific, what are some of the situations that young men may be facing that may cause them to turn into bullies all entirely? I know that social media is a
A,
very huge
a
one.
poor sense of self-esteem
Yes.
through poor family interactions, a lack of positive role models. In many cases, young men don't have male positive role models around them. The people they're seeing and looking up to are bullies themselves. Uh, an unfortunate approach to dealing with conflict. Every conflict will come into everybody's life at different stages, probably every day, every week, but you have to learn to deal with it. Um, Situations where a poor sense of self-esteem, uh, uh, which comes from underperformance in school. So you're not performing well in school for several different reasons, or you're not performing on the football field, and you're finding ways, unproductive ways, to build your self-esteem in the absence of productive ways to build your self-esteem. So you're expressing yourself in an antisocial manner to change the power dynamic that you feel about yourself by your poor self-esteem. And that's one of the main reasons you see people engaging in bullying activity, because they're looking at building their self-esteem in an unproductive manner. And there's no one around to tell them that's not the way to do it. The people they're looking at and looking up to are engaging in it, so they're modeling that antisocial behavior.
Okay. How do you think we should go about dealing with the issue of bullying? A lot of people speak to the victim being bullied, but what about the bully themselves? What are some measures that can be taken to deal with a bully on a whole and then the victim of the bullying?
Well, you have to identify the activities taking place in the first place. Very often it goes under the radar. It's identified in schools. The school officials, in many cases, do nothing about it. It continues until it gets to a stage where, I mean, we saw what happened recently nationally. And there needs to be systems in place so people can feel empowered to report it. And then we need counseling for both the victim and the bully. Because if you don't counsel the victim, they can be devastating, or they are devastating psychological and sometimes physical effects. But if you don't counsel the bully, you don't get to the root problem of what's causing it, and that person will continue perpetrating that behavior. So counseling, education, public awareness campaigns about what bullying is, because very often what we accept as normal is not normal behavior or should not be considered normal behavior. So very often people are unaware that they're engaging in this unproductive antisocial behavior, and how they can report it and how they can seek help if they are victims of bullying, physical and verbal abuse. And if someone identifies that someone is a bully, what are the mechanisms to deal with that person so they can receive counseling and remediate that behavioral pattern?
Okay. Now, if we have to deal with an issue, we have to first deal with what is causing the issue, as you said. What are some of the signs that we may see in our workspaces that may give us the red flag of this person is a bully, and how do we deal with it in the workspace itself as
Well, in the
adults?
workspace, you're talking about adults. Adults will know. I'm presuming that in an office space, there are set rules and guidelines into how people should interact. There are parameters within which people behave and operate in a workplace. There are IR and HR guidelines in place in a workplace for conflict resolution. And if there's no IR, HR manager or policy, there should be one. And there should be conflict resolution avenues in the workplace. If someone is feeling bullied or threatened or abused, there should be someone they can report to. If it's their superior doing it, there should be someone or some mechanism in place where they can report it so that it doesn't continue and impact their sense of well-being and also the productivity in the workplace. So I think workplaces, and I know this is a broad statement, should have those policies and guidelines in place and avenues for redress. In the absence of that, I'm sure there are external agencies, the Ministry of Labor, for example, or other agencies that can be avenues for redress in these situations where people can feel comfortable in reporting and finding some level of remediation or redress.
Okay, all right. And of course, just like the last segment, I'd like to finish off with some advice that you'd like to give to a young man who has been through the system. When I say system, I mean from a youth to an adult, and is now dealing with the after effects of being bullied throughout his childhood and then ending up in the workspace as a man who doesn't know how to deal with these issues. What advice would you give to a young man in terms of addressing the issues and getting over them?
Don't be afraid to feel. Very often, young men in society are told you're not supposed to feel or show emotions. You're supposed to be a man and stand up and take it and not acknowledge that it is having a devastating effect on you. Acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge your emotions. Seek help, seek counseling. Find someone you trust and have respect for in a positive manner to have a conversation with. And don't be afraid to seek counseling to get yourself well. You can be physically unwell and you can also be psychologically and emotionally unwell. So acknowledge your feelings and validate your feelings and seek help and have conversations with people that you have trust and respect for.
All right. To our young men from the Tobago Updates family, as we're wrapping up an interview based on domestic violence against men and protecting bullied men, seek the help that you need. It's part of self-care and it's honestly part of self-love, right? It builds you as a man and it doesn't make you less of a man to speak about your feelings to someone in a professional space, of course, or if you feel safe with your loved ones, speaking to them as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Richards, for being with us here on Tobago Updates. It was a pleasure having you. And of course, we look forward to having you in another light, as I mentioned earlier, on Tobago Updates once again. So from
Thank you
Good
for having
Morning
me.
Tobago.
Happy International Men's Day to everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richards, for being with us here on GMT on Tobago Updates. Viewers, as we continue on, I remind you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.